You know, there are monsters on the other side of that door. They're waiting for the unwary, the unsuspecting. Oh, not vampires or dragons or beasts, but they're monsters all the same. And we're going to be taking a look at them in just a moment. But first, we have to dress for the occasion. After all, it's a jungle in there. So, I'll put this on. Safety glasses. Gloves. Now we're ready to go on the other side. This is our jungle. And the monsters we're looking for take a keen eye to spot. But they're all around us. You see those guys working overhead? All right, as careful as they are, sooner or later somebody's going to drop something. Like this nut, for example. It's harmless in your hand. But if it were to hit you on the head after being dropped from that height, well, it's just like getting hit in the head by a hammer. And if a hammer were dropped and it landed on your head, you might not live to talk about it. It's just silly to take unnecessary risks. And that's what this is all about. You know, just about any place you look, you can spot all kinds of hazards, not only to your head, but also to your eyes and other parts of your body. Look at all those eye hazards. Grinding, cutting, drilling, and turning all throw off metal filings that can fly into your eyes. Now, one of these face shields hangs next to each machine. Using it protects your whole face, not just your eyes. You need eye protection when you use hand tools, too. And when you're working with galvanized metal, driving a screw or a bolt, for example, that zinc coating can flake off and it can fly into your eyes. You also need eye protection anytime you break or drill concrete, rock, or brick. Those are just a few examples of flying particles that can blind or injure someone whose eyes aren't protected. Now, in some areas, you're also likely to encounter extremely fine particles like fly ash or coal dust. This coal feed area is one of those places. You really need eye protection here. Now, in an area with a lot of dust, you have to protect your lungs as well as your eyes. Some breathing equipment comes with a mask for eye protection. If it doesn't, like this model, then you have to wear goggles. Goggles that fit tight all around the eyes for the best protection. Breathing gear is always required anytime you work with asbestos or fiberglass insulation, too. Now, there are other eye hazards besides flying particles or dust. When handling chemicals, for example, there's always a danger of spills or splashes. This man's wearing a rubber apron and gloves as well as safety glasses. When you're diluting an acid, always pour down a glass rod. And pour acid into water, never water into acid. That way, only a little bit of acid is being actively mixed at any one time, so it won't boil up in your face. This is what acid does to a piece of cloth. Imagine what it would do to your skin or your eyes. This welder has a special eye protection device. The light created by the welding arc is so bright that it can give you sunburn, not only on your skin, but in your eyes, too. Whether you're arc welding or using a torch, your eyes need protection. But your head and your eyes are not the only parts of your body that are exposed to dangers in the plant. Rotating machinery can pull loose clothing, grab long hair, or snag jewelry like a ring or a necklace or a wristwatch. Wearing jewelry around rotating machinery is a good way to find yourself collecting workman's compensation. The same holds true for long hair that isn't tucked away. There's another thing about rotating machinery. It's loud. When it's too loud for your ears to handle, you'll see one of these signs. If you're going to be in one of these places for more than a minute, use a set of Mickey Mouse ears, like these. Or use earplugs. Where do you get earplugs? Out of a dispenser like this one. These are just a few kinds of monsters. The whirling ones, the falling ones, and the flying variety. We'll be back to look at more safety hazards in a few minutes. During the break, read through segment 1 of your text and work the exercises. All right, you've seen a few monsters, but there are other dangers around here, traps and pitfalls. Suppose you have to do some work above floor level, and you have to climb a ladder to get there. If you don't inspect it before you use it, it can get you into a lot of trouble. Broken or missing rungs and split side rails can be hazardous to your health. Rubber feet prevent the ladder from going one way and sending you in another. A defective ladder is too risky to use. If it can't be repaired, get rid of it. When you're working on a straight ladder like this one, lean it up against something so it's stable and steady. To be stable, the foot of the ladder has to be placed a certain distance from the wall. The correct distance is equal to 1/4 the length of the ladder. If the ladder is 12 feet long, its foot should be 3 feet away from the wall. A 20-foot ladder would have its foot 5 feet from the wall. Here's a good rule of thumb. When you're standing upright, with your shoes touching the foot of the ladder, your fingers should just touch the rungs when you extend your arms. A straight ladder should always be tied in place or braced by a second person, too. And when you work from a ladder, whatever you're working on should be within arm's reach, easy to get at without straining. Also, don't try to be a human extension by standing on the top rung. The highest you should stand on any ladder is 2 rungs below the top one. That way you can steady yourself by leaning up against the rungs. And turning around while you're up there is a great way to get down in a hurry. If the ladder's leaned up against the wall, face the wall. Turning around with your back to the wall gives you nothing to brace yourself with, nothing to help you keep your balance. Now, if you have to work from a scaffold or a hoist, always use a lifeline and a harness. If the scaffold or hoist goes down, the lifeline and harness will keep you from going with it. Wear your hard hat when you're up there, too. It protects your head from bumps as well as from falling objects. If you happen to drop something while you're up there, give a warning yell to the people below. And if you're below and your head's up, don't stop to look around, get under cover. You won't have time to see what's coming or where it's coming from anyhow. This is a man lift. It's designed for one person. No tools, no equipment, just a person. To use a man lift, you have to have both hands free to hold on. If you're feeling dizzy or weak, stay away from this thing. You have to be in complete control of your senses to use it, or it'll use you. If a foot rung or handhold breaks while you're on the lift, don't panic. Keep cool and pull the emergency stop cord. When it stops, climb down the ladder. If the rung or handhold can't be replaced immediately, completely remove the broken piece and its mate. That way, if one foot rung should break off, someone, maybe you, won't be left hanging. If you have to move equipment from one level to another, use the elevator, but don't overload it. The load rating is stated right inside the door. Check it to see the number of pounds or the maximum number of people it can carry. Now, there's a lot of equipment that can only be serviced by getting to it through a vertical shaft. Whenever there's an open shaft or manhole, barriers are put up to keep the curious or the careless from taking an unplanned trip. If you happen to be working inside such a protected area, make sure you're wearing a harness and a lifeline. It's a long way to the bottom. Let's take another short break. Go ahead and read through segment 2 of your text and work the exercises. In a few minutes, we'll take a look at some even more dangerous places to work. We've been talking about all kinds of dangerous places around the plant, but so far, in all the areas we've mentioned, there's been plenty of air to breathe. An area where there's not enough fresh air is called a confined area. Confined areas are places like oil tanks, steam drums, or the water box on a condenser, or places like river water tunnels or filters. These can contain poisonous gases. Special precautions have to be taken before entering areas like these. This is a sniff tester. It's a special device that sniffs the air, testing it for explosive gases. It also determines if there's enough oxygen to keep you alive. If the tests indicate explosive gases or insufficient oxygen, you'll have to wear special breathing gear while you work. Even if you don't have to use breathing equipment, a confined area should be ventilated with fans or blowers to remove any dangerous gases and replace them with fresh air. Working in an area like this and staying safe requires several precautions: special safety lighting, a lifeline, and someone stationed outside the area with breathing gear in case you get into trouble. Now, if you're going to do any burning or welding inside a confined area, a special inspector has to check it out before you go in. The inspector looks for whether or not an explosion can take place and the possibility of a dangerous heat buildup. But a confined area isn't the only place where heat can get you. Heat rises, so the hottest places to work are those up high, especially up above the boilers. Up here it's so hot you can only work for a short time without taking a break to cool off. And while you're climbing around up here, be careful not to burn yourself. Grabbing onto one of those steam pipe hangers is like handling a hot poker. Up here, in the upper reaches of the plant, even the handrails can be so hot they can blister your skin. When you're up in places like this, touch everything carefully before you grab hold of it. That'll keep your palms from getting fried. Speaking of getting fried, when you're working with electrical equipment, you need special protection. With all these metal surfaces around and with water on the floor, no protection can make you a connection. Whenever you're working with electrical equipment like extension cords and portable tools, make sure that you always and only use grounded equipment and 3-wire cords. A cord like this is bad news. Forget about using cords with frayed or cut insulation. Special tools, eye protection, and insulated clothing can all help protect you from shocks. But they're no replacement for a healthy amount of respect for live electrical equipment. Once in a while, you meet someone who thinks compressed air is a toy. Now, what this clown does is blow a stream of air at someone, and in the process, winds up shooting him full of rust particles from the line. Some toy. Compressed air is used for operating certain tools and for blowing parts clean. Whenever you do either of these jobs, protect your eyes. And when you use air to clean parts off, you've got to use low-pressure air, 30 pounds. That's about 4 kilopascals, or even less. Higher pressure air is too dangerous. Those bottles contained compressed gases. As you can see, each of these cylinders is secured upright and covered with a valve cap. That's the way any compressed gas bottle must be left when it's not in use. It's generally not a good idea to store a gas bottle on its side. But if for some reason you have to leave one unattended and can't secure it, replace the valve cover and then lay the tank down on its side. An unsecured, unattended gas bottle is a potential rocket. What we've been talking about, of course, is safety. Being alert to potential dangers, practicing correct procedures, and using common sense. We've seen a lot of hazards in several areas and how to deal with them safely. Accidents don't always happen to other people. You've heard that before, and it makes sense to remember it. In the next section, we'll talk about different kinds of safety equipment you can use to protect yourself when you're confronted by man-made monsters and other dangerous situations. But first, let's take a break. You know, there's more to staying safe than just using your hard hat and safety glasses all the time. There's more equipment that's been designed for specific jobs. But if it's going to keep you safe, you have to use it. Sometimes it seems that it just takes too much effort to go through all kinds of safety procedures. If you skip them, well, maybe you'll be lucky. But then, who's lucky all the time? Some safety equipment isn't very comfortable. Most of it isn't very attractive either. But it's not designed for high fashion. It's designed to save your life, to keep you from getting hurt. Now, you know about the hard hat and the safety glasses, but there are other kinds of eye protection that apply to certain specialized jobs. Like the welder's visor, it protects your eyes from the intense light of the arc or torch while you're welding. But that's not all it does. It also protects your face from sparks and flying chips. If you stop welding for a minute to hammer at the slag on a weld, don't flip the whole shield up. One of those chips could fly into your eyes. Just flip up the filter, like this. This way you're still protected. Other kinds of eye protection include goggles like these. They seal off the eyes from the air when the air is full of dust or fumes. Now, sometimes you'll use these with a filter mask to prevent harm to your lungs, too. Now, so far we've been talking about keeping your head and your eyes safe. Now, we'll talk about these. What you're looking at are steel-toed safety shoes. It makes sense to wear them all the time you're at work. Safety shoes. There are also unsafety shoes, like sneakers, high heels, or any shoe with a smooth sole. Those are too slippery to wear around the plant. When there's water on the floor, wearing shoes like these is asking for trouble. Get a pair of sturdy leather shoes with steel toes and good tread for your regular work shoes. This type of safety shoe is fine for work around the plant in general. But if you're going to be doing a lot of work on ladders, safety shoes with steel arch supports are good for keeping your feet from getting cramps when you're standing on rungs all day. Where there's a definite possibility of getting your feet crushed, use extra heavy boots with steel soles and heels as well as steel toes. Other shoes have special soles that resist chemicals and electric shock, too. There are some other precautions to take when working around electricity or chemicals. When you're working with live electrical circuits, rubber gloves are a must. They'll protect you from shocks and burns. Asbestos gloves should be used when welding and handling hot items. Now, heavy canvas or leather gloves can save the skin on your hands when you're doing things like cleaning or other rough work. It's a good idea to always wear some kind of gloves in the plant. Cloth gloves are best for general purpose wear. Better than leather, which can shrink up and be hard to remove if you grab something too hot, making a burn even worse. Whatever kind you get, make sure they're fairly loose, but not so big they're clumsy to work with. If your gloves get caught in machinery or get burned, you want to be able to get your hands out as quickly as possible. Rubber gloves protect your hands from acid burns or chemical irritation. For some jobs where chemicals are involved, you need a rubber apron or even a rubber suit, something like a rain suit. Working with acids and caustic chemicals takes all the precautions you can get. Where chemicals are handled, there's always an eye fountain and a shower. Know where they are before you start working, After all, if you get acid in your eyes, you'll be temporarily blinded until you can wash them. If you do happen to splash or spill the chemical into your eyes, wash them out with a stream of water from the eye fountain. If you get acid or chemicals on any other part of your body, get under the shower and wash it off immediately. Don't give the chemical any time to work on you. And get checked by a doctor as soon as you can. What you can't see or feel may be eating you alive. Now, in case of an accident, whether it's with chemicals or something else, do what you can to help, and then notify your supervisor, no matter how small or minor the accident may be. Your supervisor wants to know about it because it's his job to do whatever he can to keep it from happening again. You know, safety is really a team effort. It takes everyone working together and using common sense to make your plant a safe place to work. When you're on the job, safety is your responsibility. Now let's break for a minute. Sloppy housekeeping. You know, it would have taken about a minute to clean up that grease. Good housekeeping is a matter of good attitude, thinking now, so you or someone else won't pay later. If you spill anything, like grease, water, or oil, or if you find a spill, take a minute to clean it up. The skull you save may be your own. And when you start a cleanup, be thorough. If you're using an absorbent to pick up oil, don't stop there. Pick up the absorbent too. Simple little things like that make for good housekeeping. Like throwing trash where it belongs instead of on the floor. Nobody should have to start a job from a workbench left like this. Wherever you're working, clean up after the job. Put tools where they belong. When cutting metal, pick up the shavings and leftover pieces so nobody trips on them or gets a foot pierced. And the same thing goes with packing materials or any other trash. Cleanliness is next to accuracy. Guesswork's not good enough when it comes to things like proper temperature or pressure. Nameplates on equipment should be kept clean too. It's hard to read a label that's been painted over. Good housekeeping. It promotes safety and prevents mistakes. Keeping things straight in a storage area keeps them from falling or rolling where someone could trip over them. Burnable liquid should be kept where they won't get spilled and create a fire hazard. Good lighting makes any job safer. Windows and light fixtures have to be kept clean at all times. And keeping the ceilings and walls clean will brighten up the place too. Keeping emergency equipment like fire extinguishers well marked and easy to reach is one of the best things you can do to make your plant safer. Labels and signs should be clean and easy to read. Equipment like this has to be ready and easy to get to the minute you need it. Good housekeeping. It's the sensible way to safety. We'll take a short break and then talk about the most important piece of equipment you'll ever use. The most important piece of equipment you'll ever work with is you, your body. Use it sensibly, and it'll be with you a long time. Lifting something is not simply a matter of being strong. It's all in knowing the right way to lift. The main thing to remember is keep your back straight, not necessarily perfectly straight up and down, just not bent while you lean over to pick something up. When you're about to lift a load, get as close to it as you can so you don't have to lean over. Spread your feet about shoulder width for good balance. Then bend your knees to get down low enough to grab the load. Once you're in the right position and you've got a good grip on the load, use your leg muscles to lift it. Do it slowly and smoothly. Jerk it up and you'll wrench your back. If the load's too heavy to lift this way, get someone to help you. Trying to lift a heavy load yourself is asking for trouble. When you're carrying a load, keep it close to you. The load should be centered, and your back shouldn't be twisted or leaning to one side. The whole idea is to keep the pull of the load right about in line with your spine. That's where it should be, whether you're lifting, carrying, or setting down a load. If you can't see around it without cocking your head to one side, get someone to help you. On stairs or ramps, be real careful. Make sure you've got a good footing. The same thing goes for carrying long loads. They're hard to handle around corners and through doors. It takes at least 2 people to carry a long load safely, especially if there's any power equipment around. And it should be carried below shoulder height. A load that's not too heavy and not too long might appear to be easier to carry over your shoulder. This makes a great battering ram. Carry it straight up and down instead. One thing you can do for your own safety is to wear gloves when you're handling loads that have rough surfaces or sharp edges. In this situation, there's a great temptation to throw what you're passing to someone else. Look at that smooth, slow rhythm. Notice how the load is set down the same way it was picked up. The load is close to the body, the knees are bent, and the legs are doing most of the work. The back is straight. Perfect. Suddenly dropping a heavy load can cause your spine to recoil, like the crack of a whip. So set a heavy load down gently, no sudden moves. Make stacks square and solid. Being in a hurry can lead to taking foolish chances, like building a stack that's a potential avalanche. When stacking things high, use a swinging motion to help you get them up there. With a little practice, you can get an item just high enough to set it down without dropping it. The same kinds of rules go for other heavy jobs at the plant, like turning valve wheels or using a wrench or pry bar. Get a good footing, get your balance, and don't twist your body. Make sure you're in the clear so you won't get thrown off balance if the wrench slips or the piece suddenly gives way. Remember not to reach so far that you're off balance. Reaching over backwards when you work on something overhead could prove to be the last reach you'll ever make. Doing this kind of work doesn't really take a lot of muscle. What it does take is a little common sense. Your strongest muscles are your legs. Use them as much as you can. Be sensible when you've got something that's heavy or awkward to handle. Ask someone to help you. If you keep your head, you won't risk losing your back. Even though there's a lot of potentially dangerous equipment at the plant and several kinds of hazardous areas, with the proper safety equipment and the right precautions, there's a lot we can do to prevent accidents. Just watch out for the monsters.